7 bone-chilling true horror stories about bad boys that haunt you forever. It was a dark and stormy night when the unthinkable happened. A scream pierced the air, chilling the bones of everyone in the neighborhood. Who was left to hear it? A simmering resentment had been brewing in the small town of Willow Creek, where stories of bad boys twisted into legends that left people breathless. Tales of mischief turned into whispers of terror as each mysterious event unfolded, drawing the locals into a web of unspeakable dread. With each passing day, the chilling grip of fear tightened. Just last month, old Mr. Thompson's barn went up in flames. Scorched remains were all that was left, and the only witness. A lone black cat crossing the street at exactly midnight. Superstitions ran wild, as townsfolk speculated if it was the bad boy David Murphy who brought the bad luck upon them. Murmurs echoed through the diner, voices trembling as they shared how David had grinned wider and deeper every time he got away with something sinister. Then came the night Sam Jacobs disappeared without a trace. The cops scoured every inch for clues, but all they found was a bloody handkerchief with his initials on it, left by the old oak tree where he'd last been seen. Panic spread faster than wildfire. Parents locked their doors, whispering prayers. What had David done to him? Speculation turned into paranoia, and paranoia brought dread. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Days turned into weeks, and still, the lingering question hung in the air like a thick fog: was David responsible? A sense of foreboding cloaked the town with its ominous presence. Children spoke in hushed tones while adults pretended all was well, even as their hearts raced. It was said that on certain nights, if you listened closely enough, you could hear a laugh echoing through the trees. But it wasn't just any laugh, it was twisted and haunting, a reflection of the darkness that now loomed over Willow Creek. What was it that David wanted? What dark power did he hold? As secrets unraveled, and fear danced in the shadows, nobody could guess what they would discover about the bad boys that haunted them forever. The weeks dragged on, suffocating the town with uncertainty. Every creak of the old floorboards in the diner seemed to resonate like a sob, a lament for the lost boy who had vanished. Panic became the new normal, painting every corner of Willow Creek with shadows. Whispers traveled faster than the evening wind, carrying with them the chilling tale of David Murphy. On that frostbitten night, Sarah Milton, a local high school girl, was walking home from the late shift at the diner. The rain had soaked the pavement, and the streetlights struggled against the heavy downpour, their flickering light rendering eerie silhouettes against the backdrop of darkness. As she made her way past the cemetery, she felt an unsettling sensation of being watched. Her heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins, urging her to pick up the pace. Suddenly, an unmistakable laugh broke through the silence. It echoed menacingly, bouncing off the headstones, sending chills cascading down her spine. It was the kind of laugh that could twist your gut into knots. She paused, the air thick with dread, looking for the source. Nothing but the shadows answered. "David!" she yelled, her voice barely steady. "Is that you?" Silence wrapped around her, almost mocking. Just as she turned to bolt away, she caught a glimpse of movement. A figure darted between the graves. Panic surged as she ran, each footfall punctuated by an increasingly frantic heartbeat. Why would David be here? Why now? As she reached her house, slamming the door behind her, Sarah's breath came in quick gasps. The familiar warmth of home was a false cocoon, and reality crashed in as she leaned against the door, the weight of the world pressing down. But even as she tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, she still couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was brewing. The next day, the air buzzed with rumors. There were stories of David lurking around at night, and a sense of thrill mixed with terror spread through the school. Some said he was plotting something sinister, while others claimed he was just a kid lost in his own warped head. Sarah felt the unease growing, it wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. A day later, Sarah met up with her best friend, Liz. They huddled together in the abandoned park, sharing their fears. Liz had heard whispers that Sam's disappearance was connected to an ancient curse tied to the town's dark past. "They say the blood moon is coming," she breathed, her eyes wide. "That's when all of David's bad deeds will come to light." The mention of the blood moon sent a shiver through Sarah. She remembered the stories told around campfires, tales of power and revenge. "What do you think will happen?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liz shrugged, her expression a mixture of terror and intrigue. "I don't know, but we have to find out, before it's too late." As dusk settled in that night, the clouds thickened, cloaking the sky. The feeling of dread returned, and the laughter echoed in Sarah's mind. She glanced out her window, spotting a flicker among the trees. Hope and terror collided within her when she thought she saw a familiar figure lurking in the shadows again. What did he want? Suddenly, a lightning bolt sliced through the dark, illuminating the figure for just a heartbeat. Was that David? She couldn't shake the question. As she stood, frozen in fear, everything reached a boiling point. As the thunder rumbled, Sarah made a decision. She had to confront David. Everything about his laugh, his power, lingered like an unspoken challenge. And if he was going to keep haunting Willow Creek, they needed to know what he truly wanted. Her heart pounding, she stepped into the storm, but was she ready for what she might uncover? What awaited her in the darkness beyond? The wind howled like a trapped spirit as Sarah stepped into the storm, each raindrop feeling like a cold needle prickling her skin. As the sheets of water cascaded around her, she squinted into the darkness, searching for any sign of movement. The familiarity of the path to the cemetery suddenly felt foreign, a treacherous descent into the unknown. With every step, she felt the electric tension in the air wrapping around her like chains. The trees swayed ominously, their branches casting monstrous shadows. David's laughter echoed again, this time hauntingly close. Panic surged through her like wildfire, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to turn back. "David!" she called out, her voice cracking but resolute. "Show yourself. What do you want from us?" The silence that followed was oppressive, swallowing her words whole. Just as she considered fleeing, a glimmer caught her eye, a flash of white near a gnarled oak in the cemetery. Heart racing, Sarah approached cautiously, the wet ground sucking at her shoes. As she neared, the sight made her blood run cold. There, among the secrets of the graves, was a crumpled piece of paper, its edges frayed as if it had been held tightly over the years. She bent down, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. It was a faded photograph, the kind that made memories feel like ghosts. In the center stood David, all laughter and innocence, flanked by boys from town, Sam among them, their faces painted with carefree joy. But something in David's eyes held an unsettling glimmer, something darker lurking beneath the surface. "What's this?" Sarah muttered, her anxiety morphing into dread. "What really happened, David?" Suddenly, the ground trembled, and she stumbled back as the laughter erupted again, echoing all around her. It wasn't just one laugh, it was a cacophony, voices twisted and warped, bouncing off the tombstones like a twisted melody. Panic surged anew, and she whirled around, searching for the source. From the shadows emerged not just David, but the ghostly figures of the boys from the photograph. Their faces were twisted in anguish, eyes hollow and darkened like deep wells. They floated closer, faces contorted in pain, like the remnants of a past begging for release. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the overwhelming presence of sorrow and rage. I didn't mean to intrude. Please." she stammered, stepping back, the wet earth slipping under her feet. One of the boys, Sam, stepped forward, and to Sarah's horror, his mouth opened, but the words that came out were a chilling whisper that echoed in her bones. "We were playing a game no one could win." The laughter intensified, drowning out her thoughts, growing heavier with every second. Sarah pressed her hands to her ears, desperate to shut out the haunting cacophony, but it only grew. She was caught in a storm of memories and screams, swirling around her like a tempest, each echo filled with accusation. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it stopped. Silence blanketed the cemetery, as thick as fog. The figures David and the others faded into the shadows, leaving behind the chilling photograph crumpled in Sarah's shaking hands. Breathless, she took a step back, eyes darting around, searching the shadows for some sign, some remnant of the chaos she had just witnessed. But the cemetery had returned to its cold, suffocating stillness. The thrill of dread clawed at her mind. What had she just learned? And more importantly, what had those boys done that night under that blood moon? With a rush of determination, Sarah turned to leave the cemetery. But the storm was far from over, and unseen forces felt real enough to grasp. What did Sam mean by a game no one could win? And what if the answers meant unlocking a darkness that should remain buried? Driven by fear and a need for answers, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she took her first steps away from the graves, knowing that the real confrontation was still ahead. Who were the true players in this game? And how could she escape its deadly grip? The rain lashed against Sarah's skin like tiny whips, the storm's fury mingling with her rising dread. Each step away from the cemetery felt wrong, as if the earth tugged at her heels, insisting she turn back. Goosebumps prickled her arms, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she'd glimpsed. She glanced back, half expecting the ghostly figures to reappear, demanding answers, their hollow eyes piercing right through her. But nothing stirred in the shadows. Just the rustling of leaves and the distant rumble of thunder. She shook her head, trying to gather her thoughts, but the terrifying image of Sam's anguished face clung to her mind. The game. What had happened? The path twisted through a dense thicket, an overgrown labyrinth that held its own secrets. Each turn felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare. The trees conspired in whispers, their branches arching as if they wanted to trap her here forever. And in her mind, the laughter echoed, a mad, hysterical sound that blended seamlessly with the crashing of the storm. Suddenly, a movement at the edge of her vision sent her heart racing. She froze, senses heightened, breath shallow. Was it another ghost? Her pulse beat in her ears as she scanned the darkness. A shadow flickered, a momentary lapse in the storm's wrath. David? She called, her voice nothing more than a fragile whisper against the chaos. No answer. Just the incessant rain. Determined, Sarah pushed forward, recalling David's joyful laughter. It once filled her with warmth, like the summer sun kissing her cheeks. Now it taunted her, an echo of an innocence lost. Didn't she deserve to know the truth? Didn't she owe it to him? The path led her to the turnoff towards the woods behind the cemetery. It was where the boys had always played their infamous games, where laughter turned to cries. The wind howled, carrying a distant moan that made her skin crawl. She should have turned back, but she was on fire with curiosity, a dangerous urge bubbling inside her. Suddenly, branches cracked underfoot. Sarah spun around just in time to catch a figure looming in the shadows. The silhouette was unmistakable. David! She gasped, taking a step forward, heart racing at the thought of seeing him alive. But as he came into view, her breath caught. It wasn't he, the joyful friend she remembered. His face was sunken, tormented, eyes glinting with something sinister. He opened his mouth, but no words came out, only that chilling laughter, echoed by unseen voices, overlapping and intertwining like a web of darkness. Join us, Sarah. His voice slithered through the space, slurring the boundaries of time. The game is just beginning. She staggered back, her mind racing. All the warnings, all the pointing fingers back in town, all the hushed tones around the bonfire, tales they cropped up without mercy. The game. It wasn't just about boys running wild. It was a pact, a darkness that clung to their souls. And now it wanted her too. No. She shouted, her voice breaking the spell. I won. But the shadows twisted in the storm, reeling her in like a moth to a flame. Panic surged, clutching her heart in an iron grip. She turned to flee, but the darkness followed, stretching and grasping, tugging at her very essence. With a scream that pierced through the storm, Sarah ran, adrenaline fueling her every step. She had to escape. She had to find out what they'd done, what had been buried with that laughter, but behind her, the laughter grew louder, more menacing, echoing through the trees. There was no escape from a game designed to trap the unworthy. What if the only way to win was to uncover the secrets they'd buried? But could she handle whatever abhorrent truth lay hidden under the roots? As she dashed through the underbrush, a faint light flickered ahead. Hope or a trap? The choice loomed, heavy with uncertainty, shaking the very foundations of her resolve. Would she dare step toward the light, or would she forever remain a player in their deadly game? The light pulsed rhythmically, a flicker in the chaos of the storm, casting eerie shadows that danced against the trees. Sarah hesitated, heart thundering. It beckoned her, potent and seductive, like a moth to a flame. Yet, something deep inside her screamed to turn and run. But the laughter was relentless, swirling around her, calling her to join their twisted game. David? She barked out his name again, the syllables barely escaping her lips as fear wrestled for dominance. Silence enveloped her for a heartbeat, then the light brightened. Come on, Sarah. You have to see. The voice was unmistakably David's, but it echoed with a chilling taint, warped and distorted like a broken record. Each syllable sliced through her resolve. Before she fully knew what she was doing, she propelled herself forward into the shimmering light, fighting against the clutches of panic that threatened to pull her back into the darkness. As she stepped closer, the world shifted. The trees peeled away like old wallpaper, revealing an abandoned playground, eerie and surreal, bathed in the glow of the unnatural light. Rusting swings creaked against the howling wind, and a merry-go-round spun slowly, its paint chipped yet strangely vibrant. The laughter had dwindled to whispers, reverberating through the air, teasing her with half-remembered memories. See? It's just a game, Sarah. David's voice drifted through the haze. Just like old times. The what-ifs clawed at her mind. Her stomach knotted as dread settled in. She glanced around, searching for the source of the laughter, for the faces she knew had twisted into something unrecognizable. No one appeared. Only shadows lurked behind the skeletons of slide and swing, and the laughter echoed low, a sinister serenade. Why are you doing this? She shouted, desperation threading through her voice. What happened to you? To us? Freedom, Sarah, he whispered, suddenly close enough for her to feel his breath on her neck, his presence a blend of comfort and terror. We were trapped, but we found a way out. His sunken eyes bore into her, a dark reflection of joy and pain. Out. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. At what cost? And then she saw it, lurking just behind the edges of his smile, a thirst that bled into her soul, a craving for something more sinister than she could comprehend. The boys had played a game. But now, it seemed, the price was not just their souls. Join us, Sarah. The crowd is waiting. The game needs you. His voice sloped into a gravelly insistence, the air thick with pressure as if every player's eyes were on her. Eager, hungry, fingers trembling, she took a step back. Through the howling wind and the neon glow, she spotted something fluttering in the air, a scrap of fabric, stained dark as old memories. It drifted to the ground, stirring more memories, each tugging at her heart like threads unraveling from a tapestry of innocence. Chilling realization dawned on her, the playground was more than abandoned. Something lost lived here, something that craved attention. You want me to play? To join your ranks? Her body screamed to escape, but her heart throbbed with a desperate need to uncover the truth buried in the soil, in the laughter, something dark and ugly that clung to the air like smoke. Win the game, Sarah. The answer is here, waiting, ready to be uncovered. As she steeled herself to confront the boys, those familiar faces turned alien, tainted by shadows. She was interrupted by the crack of a flash of lightning overhead. It illuminated something lurking just behind David, a shape creeping out from the darkness, and at that moment, Sarah knew she had to choose, confront whatever horror awaited her or allow its whispers to drag her deeper into madness? Could she untangle their dark secret before it consumed her? Or was she already too late, ensnared in a trap designed for the unwary? The echo of laughter, both blissful and cruel, faded as she edged closer to the unknown, breath hitching in her throat. She strained to listen, to grasp the truth before the rain claimed her entirely. Would she have the strength to face the darkness of their game, or would fear swallow her whole? The shape behind David shifted, a silhouette rippling and bending as if the shadows conspired to hide its true form. Sarah's heart raced, the thrum of her pulse drowning out the distant rumble of thunder. She squinted through the light, desperate to parse the figure from the darkness. "Step aside, David," she begged, her voice a whisper of defiance. "What is that?" David turned slightly, and his smile faltered. "You don't want to know." He stepped forward again, as the figure receded just beyond the reach of the glow, disappearing into layers of shadow. It felt alive, breathing, waiting. Ignoring his warning, Sarah took a full step into the light. A rush of warmth enveloped her, cutting through the chill of the storm. The laughter faded to a dull roar, a pulse that matched the lightning crackling overhead. Suddenly, a child's voice, sweet and innocent, echoed in her mind. "Come play with us, Sarah." She froze, the innocence in the voice clashing against the horror surrounding her. Memories of playing tag, of laughter on sunny afternoons, occupied a cherished corner of her heart. But this wasn't that. The laughter here was twisted. The joy stained. "Who is there?" she implored, the question tasting of trepidation. From the depths of the darkness, another figure slipped forward, less defined than David. The space warped around it, distorting and flickering like a test screen on a broken television. "You've always been the best player," the figure crooned, voice dripping with malice. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She took a shaky step back. "What do you want?" "Nothing from you," it hissed, its eyes two soulless voids locking onto hers. "It's the game that wants you. It's been waiting for someone with spunk, someone willing to face the darkness." A sickening feeling coiled in her stomach. "What game?" She pushed through the fear, the desperation biting at her insides. "I want to play. I want to." "Oh, but you will, Sarah," David said softly, his voice morphing into something sinister. "You already have. You've come this far. The stakes are higher than you could ever understand." Light flashed again, illuminating the boy's face, revealing twisted shadows etched deep in his features, the remnants of what once might have been a friend. The storm surged, the wind howling in a cacophony of torment, as Sarah's mind raced. "David, please, I need you to fight this," she cried, feeling like a sinking ship. "You can still break free." He hesitated, a flicker of humanity surfacing in his sunken eyes. "The more you know, the harder it gets. Stay away from the shadows." Those words hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. The amusement of the game curdled into something grotesque. She glanced around, the swings dancing violently, the playground now a cage of horrors. "I just need to know the truth," Sarah shouted into the night, her voice raw. "What happened to you all?" The echoing laughter returned, mingling with David's pleading gaze, filling her with dread. In that moment, a realization struck her harder than the storm's fury. The boys weren't lost, they were trapped in this nightmare, their spirits tethered to the playground like ghosts haunting their last living memory. "Help us," Sarah, David's voice tremored. "Break the cycle." Before Sarah could respond, the wind howled menacingly, and as if drawn by some unseen force, shadows swarmed at her feet, reaching up like desperate hands. The playground began to twist and warp again, the boundaries of her reality bending. An icy tendril of panic wrapped around her heart. If she didn't stay one step ahead, she wouldn't just be uncovering their truth. She would become entangled in the horror herself, a new player in a game beyond her comprehension. As the ground beneath her began to tremble, she held her breath. Would she find the answers she desperately sought, or would she just become another shadow in the playground? "Sarah!" Run! The urgency in David's voice crashed over her, breaking through the black veil of fear, and for a moment, she dared to hope. But as she turned to flee, she realized there was nowhere to hide. The playground closed in, the darkness alive and hungry. What lay ahead would demand a sacrifice, and she'd already paid dearly just to stand there. Was she truly prepared to face the game's ultimate challenge? The answer lingered in the thickening air, unbearable and looming. The shadows lurched forward as if sentient, snatching at Sarah's legs, pulling her down into the desperate grasp of the darkness. Panic surged within her, a primal instinct to survive clawing at her chest. She fought back, each step a battle against the overwhelming force dragging her to the playground's horrific core. "Sarah, don't let them take you." David's voice echoed, fragmented yet sharp, cutting through the despair like a lightning bolt. She didn't dare look back, but the urgency of his words propelled her forward, toward the flickering light that seemed to sway like a beacon in a storm. The air thickened, a clammy fog wrapping around her as if the darkness had a mind of its own. The swings creaked eerily, laughter, a chorus of children's voices bellowed, drowning her thoughts. It was an agonizing blend between joy and terror, each note a reminder of everything lost. She sprinted, her heart pounding in her ears louder than the thunder above, but the laughter grew, rolling like waves that threatened to overwhelm her. She dodged the slides that seemed to shimmy away from reach, warped figures dancing just at the edge of her vision. "Help us, Sarah," the voices wailed, merging into a single haunting plea. "We're trapped. You can save us. Shut up. Shut up." She yelled back, desperate to drown them out, desperate to focus. The shadows began to crackle in response, the air charged with an energy that left her dizzy, feeling as though the ground was shifting under her feet. Then, she spotted it, a solitary swing, slicing through the inky blackness, barely illuminated by the haunting white light. It hung, beckoning as though it were the only path to salvation. A part of her knew it was a trap, but the urge to break free pushed her closer. In that moment, hesitating felt like a death sentence, so she lunged forward, grasping the chains of the swing. It felt deceptively warm, a pulse of life contrary to the chilling aura surrounding her. The shadows quivered at her touch, recoiling momentarily. "Why do you fight?" The shadow murmured, its voice silky yet sinister. "This is paradise, a game where you'll never lose unless you resist." She gritted her teeth, shaking her head. Paradise? The word was bitter on her tongue. "You're lying." A cold gust swept through, and she gasped, images flashing before her eyes, children's faces twisted in horror, a playground on fire, laughter replaced by screams. It was a fusion of memories, not just hers, but David's and others who had slipped into darkness. "No!" She screamed, launching herself from the swing, slamming her eyes shut to block out the visions. But the laughter echoed louder, overwhelming her senses. "Come back, Sarah!" David shouted, his figure once again a glimpse of hope fighting against the abyss. "You have the power to end this nightmare." "What do I have to do?" She cried out, panic mixing with desperation. "Face your fear. Locate the heart that binds us." His eyes burned bright with conviction, even as the shadows twisted around him. "Before it consumes us all." With a dawning realization, Sarah looked around, weighing the shadows licking at her feet and the flickering light of freedom. There was something deep within the dark, something pulsating like a heartbeat. Taking a deep breath, she surged forward again, each step against the dark shadows pulling at her, each heartbeat a reminder of the sacrifices made. Would she emerge on the other side, or would she become yet another plaything in this cursed game? She knew the answers were out there, hidden in the darkness. She just needed the strength to find them. "Sarah, don't stop." David's voice fell into the storm behind her, a final tether before the shadows surged with fury, almost solidifying like a wall. As she plunged deeper into the otherworldly depths, she felt the weight of their futures pressing down, a promise of doom and hope tangled together. The playground was a maelstrom, but one question thumped in her mind: would the truth save them or doom them all? Then suddenly, a blinding light erupted before her, the ground trembled violently, and she was thrown backwards. What had she awakened? The light engulfed Sarah, blinding and brilliant, forcing her to shield her eyes. A tremor rippled through the ground, sending a strong wave of energy that launched her backwards, crashing into a gritty surface. She gasped, drawing in the musty scent of damp earth and something that smelled distinctly like decay. The laughter from moments before faded into a dull echo, replaced by a heavy silence that felt more suffocating than the darkness itself. Clenching her fists, she blinked against the brightness. Slowly, the world around her came into focus. She was no longer in the playground, but in a twisted reflection of it, a graveyard of forgotten memories where rusted tires lay half buried in the earth, and splintered boards leaned against each other like broken bones. Sarah. David's voice resonated nearby, a thread of hope cutting through the despair. Where are you? Here. She shouted back, her voice quavering, swallowed by the eerie stillness. I'm okay. Yet even as she spoke, doubts gnawed at her. Was she truly all right? The shadows were still lurking at the corners of her mind, weaving a web of dread threatening to pull her under again. The graveyard pulsated with an energy, a dark heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with her own. Follow the heartbeat. David urged, his presence tangible yet distant. It's the key to breaking this curse. Nodding, she took tentative steps forward, instinctively glancing over her shoulder. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, but she refused to let them paralyze her again. She pressed on, slowly piecing together the scattered remnants around her: a broken seesaw, a swing hanging crookedly, its chains rusted and screaming for freedom. Then it hit her. The heart, she whispered, pushing through her fear. The heart that binds us. Sarah's focus sharpened. Every thud of her racing pulse synced with the unsettling rhythm beneath her feet. She followed that pulse, allowing it to guide her deeper into the graveyard, every step feeling heavier, every whisper of the wind more threatening. As she turned the corner, the sight made her stomach drop. In the center of the graveyard stood an old, gnarled tree, its bark warped and twisted, like hands reaching out in agony. Dark roots lay sprawled around it like serpents, and right at the base, a hollow cavity throbbed with a faint, ominous light. What is that? Her voice barely came out, a whisper. Inside, David urged. That's where you'll find it. You must confront the truth. But even as she stepped closer, fear coiled in her gut. What if the truth was worse than the shadows? What if the nightmares she fought against were merely protecting her from something far more horrific? Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the cold sweat on her skin. Each step drained her of resolve, but she refused to turn back, the duty to save David and the others igniting a fire of determination within her. What did the light hold? With a surge of adrenaline, she knelt before the hollow, eyes locked on the flickering shimmer. I'm coming for you. She shouted, pushing her hand into the cavity, reaching for the pulsating heart, but before she could touch it, a force exploded from within, throwing her against the ground. Shadows spiraled around her, swirling like a tornado and casting blinding flashes of light that illuminated terrifying faces twisted in agony. Sarah! The laughter returned, louder, more menacing, drowning her out. As the shadows closed in, she gritted her teeth, heart racing. She realized this battle was far from over. What preyed upon them in the dark? What horrific truth was buried waiting to emerge? It pulsed with rage in the heart of the tree, and she knew she wouldn't leave without discovering what it held. But would she survive the journey, or was she destined to join the others in eternal torment? Desperation clung to her like a second skin, but one truth was certain: the end was just beginning. Ripping through the chaos, Sarah felt a jolt of fear surge within her, straining against the shadows that clamored for her attention. It was as though the darkness had a consciousness, a hunger that sought to drive her into the depths of despair. The laughter twisted and curled like smoke, taunting her, each echo more malicious than the last. Fight it, Sarah. You have to fight it. David's voice broke through the noise, grounding her, reminding her of the stakes. With clenched fists and shaking legs, she pushed herself up, the earth beneath her feeling both cold and alive. She focused on the pulsating heart again, its glow flickering precariously as if it sensed her uncertainty. "It's just light," she muttered to herself, trying to banish her growing doubts. "It can't hurt you." Yet as she reached for it again, the air thickened. The shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, mocking her bravery, whispering her fears back to her failure, her loneliness. "You think you're special?" a voice hissed from the darkness. "You're just another lost soul. Stop it!" she cried, her voice tremoring but resolute. "I'm not afraid of you." As those words left her mouth, a ripple of strength flowed through her. Her heart synced with the rhythm of the hollow's light, raw and unyielding. The laughter momentarily quieted, the world holding its breath as Sarah plunged deeper into the hollow. Suddenly, an icy grip seized her wrist, dragging her backward. She gasped, feeling the choking cold wrap around her, whispering promises of despair. "You're not meant to be here." Before she could react, a figure emerged from the murky shadows, standing just beyond the reach of the light. It was a child, grotesquely maligned yet achingly familiar. Green eyes glinted like emeralds amidst the darkness. "Sarah, help us." The voice was soft, yet it carried an underlying layer of anguish that made her shudder. "No!" she shouted, instinct kicking in as she wrenched her arm free. "Get back! You're not real." But the child's face twisted in undeniable pain. "Please, you don't understand. We are all trapped. You can save us." Torn between her instincts and empathy, Sarah hesitated. "Save you?" she echoed, trying to process the implications. The shadows undulated with impatience, rattling against her mind, urging her to flee. "Leave her alone." David's voice barked, desperate, as he pushed aside the shadows, determination coloring his words. "Sarah, focus. We need to confront the truth." With newfound urgency, Sarah surveyed the scene. The dim light from the hollow grew more intense, pulsating like the heartbeat they had followed. It needed her to engage, to embrace the darkness, to unveil its truth. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice firm as she stared at the shadowy child, struggling with her own fears. She asked, "What happened to you? What is this place?" The child's face morphed. "Our memories breathe here. But they're twisted, they need light to break free." The figure melted back into the shadows, leaving only the echo of pain lingering in the air. A bolt of realization struck her. The truth lay beyond the fear, above the shadows. The light in the hollow wasn't just an object, it was a conduit for everything they had lost. "David. We need to shine the light, we need to break the curse." But just as words left her lips, a powerful force erupted from the tree, sending the ground rocking beneath them. The air electrified, swirling with shadow and light as all at once. Sarah understood this was not merely a confrontation, it was a reckoning. "Hold on!" she screamed as the forces coalesced into a whirlpool of chaos, her heart racing with a fearsome urgency. The hollow erupted with a scream of its own, as if the very ground sought to consume them. Would she and David find the strength to illuminate what lay buried beneath desperation, or would they too become part of the shadow's twisted design? The vortex of darkness spun faster, threatening to engulf everything. As Sarah reached for the heart again, desperation crackled in the air. Suddenly, the whispers rose in a cacophony, echoing a single question that clawed at her mind: "Are you ready to confront the truth?" A new dread tightened around her chest as realization deepened. She finally understood, this was only the beginning of a battle within that went far beyond the graveyard. The ground trembled beneath Sarah, a deep, thrumming rhythm that matched the pounding of her heart. The shadows swirled and pulsed, each knot of darkness begging her to retreat, but she stood firm, fear battling against burning resolve. The hollow's light flickered with life, shimmering like a dying star ready to explode. "Sarah!" David urged again, his voice filled with urgency as he stepped closer, despite the darkness clawing at him. "You can end this. You must embrace it." She forced herself to breathe, gulping down the thick air coated with fear. The truth was waiting, The heartbeat in her chest synchronized with the pounding throb emanating from the rhythm of their past, one that had been sealed away with the fears and regrets buried beneath the roots of that tree. "Are you ready to confront the truth?" echoed the shadows, their twisted laughter ricocheting through the space like snapping twigs underfoot. "Yes, I am." Sarah's voice broke through the chaos, louder than the haunting cacophony. She understood now that to save David and the others, she had to embrace the very darkness she feared. With her heart pounding fiercely, she hurled herself into the hollow, fingers grasping for the pulsing heart that promised liberation. As her hand closed around it, a surge of energy blasted through her, sending shockwaves of memories flooding her mind, laughter echoing innocently among the swings, a game amongst friends turned sinister under the blood moon, fractured moments of joy entwined with terror. In that instant, she felt the weight of their anguish, lost boys who had played a dangerous game, suffering in silence, forever trapped in shadows. "You were just kids," Sarah whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks as she held on to the pulsating heart. Their stories intertwined with hers in a fragile dance of light and darkness. "Let me help you find peace." The shadows surged around her, writhing in agitated waves, but she held steadfast, allowing the light to flood her veins like wildfire. It coursed through her, illuminating the ghostly faces of the boys, their anguished gazes shifting toward her with a spark of hope. David was there, and in those moments, she could finally see the glimpse of the boy he once was. Behind the layers of darkness and despair, with a scream that both echoed and shattered, Sarah unleashed the heart's light, filling the air with brilliant energy, reviving the spectral playground that had become a graveyard of lost boys. Instantly, everything shifted. The ground released its hold on the shadows, and memories began to swirl upwards, freed from their chains. Around her, the laughter morphed into cries of relief, echoing like a symphony of redemption. The spirits danced, no longer trapped, the once ghostly figures appearing vibrant, their burdens lifted. They soared into the sky, a constellation of freedom that shone brighter than any darkness ever could. A flash of brilliance enveloped Sarah, and just like that, the shadows dissipated, the whispers quieting into silence. The haunting laughter faded into echoes of joy, filling the air with a sweet, crystalline sound that promised a new beginning. "Thank you," David's familiar voice broke through softly, weaving through the night like a gentle breeze. "You've helped us find freedom. Now, it's time for your light, too." As the last shimmer of darkness receded, Sarah felt herself being pulled away from the graveyard of shadows. It transformed, blooming into a playground once more, alive with laughter, the swings creaking gently in the night breeze. Standing before the gnarled tree, she smiled through her tears, genuinely alive. "I'll always remember you," she whispered to the spirits that once roamed these woods in torment. As the dawn broke on Willow Creek, the storm clouds scattered, revealing a warm sunlight that cascaded over the town like a promise. Sarah returned to her quiet street, the weight of darkness lifted from her shoulders, her heart swelling with hope. Each step felt lighter as she reflected on the truths uncovered and the friendships mended. The game was over. But its lessons would withstand the test of time. She knew now that darkness could only thrive where secrets remained. Before long, it felt like she could still hear their laughter echoing in the air, but now it was just a reminder celebration of a challenge faced and a truth revealed. She would carry them with her, forever changed. And for David and the boys, they had finally escaped the clutches of the game without fear. Life in Willow Creek would go on, new stories waiting to be told. But as Sarah looked towards the horizon, she felt a warmth spiral in her heart, curiosity for what lay ahead, knowing she overcame the darkest night. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming soon. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world.